So you mentioned, Matar, how your PhD was more intense than some other people's PhDs, neuroscience PhDs, certainly much more intense than orders of magnitude more intense than my PhD was in terms of like being really in the real world and dealing with patients. But that wasn't your only intense job that you had. So, am I reading this correctly? You were teaching children how to use tanks, preschool tank instructor. No, wait, it's
Yeah.
two separate items. Yeah, so you were a preschool teacher. You were also a tank instructor. So I'm curious as to whether those experiences helped you prepare for your career. And in particular, maybe this might seem tangential, but it wouldn't surprise me if somehow this does tie into an answer, which is that I know that you're passionate about expanding leadership opportunities for women in STEM careers, including data science. And so I wonder if we can somehow tie those two topics together.
Yeah, sure, why
Maybe
not?
not.
My military. In Israel, there's a mandatory military service. I actually did kind of like a strange route. Normally, when you're 18, you basically that's when you start your military service. I actually did
But
my
you went to
undergrad.
Berkeley,
I did.
right? Yeah,
I
you went to Berkeley for an undergrad and then back to Israel to be a tank instructor and then back to Berkeley to do your PhD.
Yes, correct. True story. And
And then now
so
you're back in Israel again.
and now, God, why can't I make a decision? Yes. um, and so I did it a bit backwards, and I actually decided that for my military service, not like there's not a ton of like flexibility in what you do, but like there's some. And I decided that I wanted to try out to do something that was like very different from anything that I would ever do. I said I'm probably going to be in an office for the rest of my life. I want to do something very different, and I also want to do something that's like kind of scary to me that like I'm pretty sure I'll fail at it. I think it'll be really difficult. It's like goes totally completely out of my comfort zone. Um, because I think that's important. And I said, and the risk here isn't that high. Like worst case, like I won't be that great in the military. That's fine. I tried out to be like an instructor. And then specifically, I saw a tank. I was like, that machine is amazing. I want that. And so then I like tried out specifically to be a tank instructor. And the way that it works is at least then was that they have women that basically we train the tank the soldiers. It Where basically in a tank you have the gunner, you have the driver, you have the loader, and you have the commander. And My role was basically to train the gunners, and then also commanders have to do all of them, and officers have to know all of them, and so also training like the commanders and the officers. And specifically for training the gunners, I was trained on the weapon subsystems. So basically, all of the computers and that basically helps them under like all of the computer system within the tank for the weapon subsystem. And it was kind of tricky to do my undergraduate before my military service because I would ask my commanders questions like, "So the algorithm that it uses to understand like what angle to open, is that like does it learn through reinforcement learning?" And they would just look at me and be like, "What? Who are you? Like, what planet did you come from? Like, what are huh?" um, and so that's what I did my military service in. And so it included like it was like incredibly physically difficult because they basically make us go through. Uh, I did basic training, had to do like a million and one push-ups, run around a lot, be outside, not sleep, learn how to basically. I was trained on all of the subsystems of the tank, not only the gunners, basically to learn everything that goes on there, and then focus in on one. Because I only got basically after you do basic training, after you learn everything, that's only after that. Then they're like, okay, now you're going to focus on this. And it basically checked all the boxes of being like really, really hard, incredibly challenging. Turns out physical isn't the tough part. It's like mentally very, very difficult. And so that kind of set me up to being kind of less afraid of failure because it's tough. Um, After that, I was a preschool teacher, which was by far the most difficult job I've ever had. By far, by far, by far.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow, I even as you were saying that, I thought you were gonna say like, I had this idea of, like, cuddles and, like, laughter and, like,
Oh,
how much
yeah.
nicer that would be than a
Yes.
tank than being in a
Tons of
tank and
cuddles,
don't push it.
tons of cuddles, tons of laughter, but, like, so physically draining, and, like, so
Whoa.
emotionally, like, I would dream about my kids and, like, it never leaves you. Like, you dream about these kids and you're, like, thinking about them and, like, they
Huh.
and I was also, like, more sick than I've ever been, like, constantly sick. I was, like, always on, like,
Right.
some sort of antibiotics. No, but it's, like, very, very challenging, but it's also, it gives you it's also another way to do something that's, like, really tough and gives you a different perspective, and it's both the military and being a preschool teacher are incredibly, incredibly humbling, like, very, very humbling. And so I think that's, like, the biggest takeaway for me, of those things that I did. Um, and now wait, I need to tie it back in to women in STEMs. So, uh, now I'm a mom. I have 3 kids. I have a 2-year-old, an almost 5-year-old, in like less than a month, 5-year-old, and an 8-year-old. Uh, and so first of all, if I'm tying it all into like content moderation, why I do what I do, I think it's like extremely obvious. Like, online harm can turn into offline harm. And I do want to make sort of
Right.
all interactions safer. And in terms of like, I see my daughter and I see the world. She's 8, and the like what it means to be a woman in this world and a leader in this world. And I want to make sure that she has role models so that she isn't the only woman in her computer science class. Been there, so that she has, she isn't the only woman in meetings. Been there. Um, I want to make sure that she has like a much more welcoming environment for whatever she wants to do. And what's really sad to me is that even now, there's like discord. Like I'm hearing from her things like, "Oh, well, boys are better at that than me." No, not true. Very not true. Here's why it's not true. Um, and so these are the kinds of things that like I want to. First of all, I want to make sure that they're not out there online. These kinds of speaking of disinformation, but also I want to make sure that sort of the environment that she's growing up into is much more welcoming.